Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Groundbreaking news in the world of sports betting that's seemingly flying under the radar here a little bit. We'll bring in Matthew Waters for the latest. As Matthew, we got the news that the state of Illinois is bumping up their tax rate on sports betting to an unprecedented number of 40%, which is only 11% less than the state of New York, and now higher than Ohio, if I'm not mistaken, and higher than Pennsylvania as well. The only thing that I would say is, as well, with that little asterisk for the time being, because I can only imagine that the states and the market share sizes like they are now. Remember, Illinois is a very high market share. Chicago is one of the top media markets in the country, so it makes some sense. But I got to tell you, Philadelphia, not far behind. Cleveland, Ohio, not far behind. I would guess that precedent is now set and others will follow. By the way, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, I'm always happy to be here, Craig, especially when we have a story like this that, yeah, when it comes out that people are raising tax rates, it doesn't always get through to the consumer what that can mean. And it can have some big implications for sports betting here and what that means for consumers in the long run. Basically, Illinois, they had the idea of raising it to 35%, a 35% flat tax. And luckily for some of the smaller guys, that got pared back a little bit in the Senate. So now we're looking at a tier that has, if you make less than 30%, you're going to be taxed at 30 million, excuse me, going to be taxed at 20%. That goes all the way up to being taxed at that 40% on your gross revenue of 200 million or more for the year. There's only two operators that hit that, Craig, and obviously that's DraftKings and FanDuel. I checked the stock prices before we came on, and they're not great, Craig. 13% down almost for DraftKings at more than double its average daily volume already. And FanDuel in the U.S., they were down close to 7%. I believe that puts them near a new low. Remember, they just listed on the U.S. Not too long ago, but still not great for these operators. And there's a note from Carlos Santarelli at Deutsche Bank that really kind of breaks it all out great. And you look at what FanDuel paid last year. FanDuel paid $68 million in taxes at that 15% tax rate. They now would be paying, based on the last 12 months numbers, they would be paying an additional $81.6 million in taxes. DraftKings is similar, $66 million in taxes last year. If we looked at the last 12 months, another $66 million in taxes on top of that based on the new tax rates. And so, yeah, Craig, we have to look at what exactly this means for Illinois right now. And I know we'll touch on some other states later, but like you said, Illinois is huge. And they're not even done building out their sports betting market, except now I think they are, if this goes through. Remember, they have some of those online-only licenses that are available at $20 million each, which you might be able to make that math work somehow if the tax rate was still 15%. It's tough now. It is going to be tough for these operators to be able to continue to keep up their level of investment that they had in the state when you have such a jump like this. And yeah, of course, it is not up to the state to worry about what the companies do, how much money they make, right? They agreed to be here, and that's that. But it's tough, Craig. Now, we haven't seen it yet. We have not seen the effect put onto the bettors. We have heard in New York, DraftKings said that they may have to start to offer worse odds, and that was said last year. And we've heard similar things from other companies, but we just haven't necessarily seen it. We have seen worse odds come through in the ways of different parlay products and what they're doing. DraftKings obviously now has the parlay product that will allow you to lose a leg or two of your parlay, but naturally you're not getting the same kind of odds as a true parlay with that. So the operators have been finding ways to find money here or there, but honestly, Craig, that was really just making sports betting profitable and attractive for these companies. Before PASPA in May 2018, the argument was that these companies made about 5%, 5 cents on the dollar for every dollar that's bet. And that is trending up because of these parlays. And so when you start to see that operators are holding more than what they said they would, when they were lobbying for this legislation and lobbying for the lower tax rates because it was a low margin business, now the conversation has changed with how they're making business. And so I do understand the conversation changing in the legislatures. Just have to make sure that you're not damaging or potentially ruining the industry in front of you. Illinois, yes, big numbers out of Illinois. I doubt operators are going to stop operating in Illinois, but will the product look different? We're getting to the point where it may have to in some of these states that are making the move.
Yeah, and there is a fight going on, by the way. It seems like there is this group that's trying to step up and stop the tax rate, and there's also a sports betting alliance that is going to try and keep the customers in tap too. Do you think they have any success with this, or this just basically just keeps moving?
I'm not sure, Craig, because the SBA, the two biggest partners there are DraftKings and FanDuel. So, they are out here pounding the pavement. They have pop-ups coming up on their apps in Illinois saying, email your legislators. They're trying to do as much as they can, and it didn't work in Illinois. So I don't know what kind of influence they're going to have moving forward.
Let's now get to the main story of the summer, which is wondering whether or not we're going to have college player props coming up in the fall. College football season, Matt, as you know, is coming up in August here around Labor Day. It's not that far away. Different states are taking different sort of stances on this. The NCAA president, Charlie Baker, is involved as well. What can you tell us the latest is?
Yeah, I would encourage anybody interested in this to head over to LegalSportsReport.com. Check out Mike Mazzio's article on this. He does a great job. There are a lot of different viewpoints in this article that I simply can't get across to you in this one segment. But we know that Charlie Baker wants the end of player props around the U.S. on college players. And it's interesting to hear how that is playing out with some people. You have the NCAA Managing Director of Enforcement, Mark Hicks, saying, could that move people offshore? Yeah, it could. But also, we encourage federal law enforcement to go after the unregulated black market. So the NCAA, in Hicks' point of view, at least, is saying, well, we're not the only ones that could be doing something about this. The federal government should be doing something about this. Obviously, it's not that easy when it comes to shutting down these black market operators, Craig. It takes money trails, it takes paperwork to find, and the offshore guys are really good at not letting that happen. One of the other things that I thought was a great quote came from a regulator, an unnamed regulator, state regulator, that said, do you really think people are just going to comply with this and not gamble anymore? There's always going to be a-holes on the internet. First, we're banning college player props. At what point does it stop? So we're not done with this conversation. We have had some states, we've had West Virginia, we've had Ohio, we've had a couple others step up and say, yeah, let's end this. But others are saying, no, we don't want to do that. And others are still just up in the air on it. We know from Ohio, it was less than 2% of the handle on these college prop bets total that the operators had taken. So it's not a huge section of the market. But it's tough because you are sending people that want to bet on that to the black market. And that has to be tough for these regulators to weigh out. So it's still a very much so ongoing conversation.
Yeah, and again, limiting some of the bets could be the possibility for the future with these props. But again, we got to figure this out. We got 3 months to go. All right, Matt, thanks for coming on. Great to see you again. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. Take care, guys.